Overhead shoulder pain is a perfect case study on what to do and where to start. Now, obviously refer out, make sure that they get approved, tested, MRI, whatever the case may be. But had a client recently, and what we found is that it wasn't structural because we were able to get overhead without pain, but oftentimes the brain just is signaling to us that it's insecure and it's giving us aspects of pain. Now, we don't ever want to work through pain, we don't want to treat pain, but we want to find workarounds to build strength and stability around that. That's what we're going to be talking about today. It's a perfect case study here. So, where do we start? Oftentimes, what I'll do is I'm trying to teach the body where it is in space. Our muscle is the largest sensory organ in the body, but if we are not living in this position or we've had an experience where we've had something happen, naturally, the body honestly doesn't know where it is up there. I mean, how many clients have you seen where the arm is all over the place? It is learning that it is safe to move up here and what to turn on in order to engage to do so. So I'll start with a PVC pipe. Now, oftentimes clients feel a great stretch in their pecs and they're like, oh, this is opening up my chest and great for posture. Yeah, maybe. You might get a little bit of that. Ultimately, it's really just teaching us that this position is going to be okay. It's giving us some feedback by a tool that this is where the arm can go. We're getting a stretch, but usually we're not going to get pain through this because it's an assisted position and they're not going to force through. Now again, if they are, have them stop, never work through pain, never work through any of those types of motions. But this is where I'll often start, right? And this is how I'll find some workarounds. I'm like, cool, we're not going to go overhead. So the next thing I'll usually try and do is a dead bug. Because ultimately, if we are going into this position where opposite arm, opposite leg comes back, I am again teaching the arm where it is to live in space overhead. I'm getting some neuromuscular recruitment to happen so that we know where it can be. Add a kettlebell, add a dumbbell. Now we're getting a little bit of lat to turn on to teach how to stabilize and pull up and through. But we're also getting a ton more strength from that arm being overhead with a tool, right? Without them ever feeling like they're in an insecure position to be able to do so. Simultaneously, when I'm doing that, I'll work in some wonderful tricep exercises. So I'll either be on a bench or hinged over, and I'll take my arm and I'll bring my elbow all the way up, and I'll get some tricep extension. Now, yes, this is a very shortened position for the tricep. We are not getting a ton from it, but the tricep is a big stabilizer that's going to be happening when we are going overhead in any type of position. But also, if we look at what this is, right, the arm is all the way back. And so I am in maximum extension of this position. And so what really helps to gain back some mobility in the shoulder is to work through the ranges that we are weakest in. And so we have two main sections divided into ultimately 3 parts. Technically, you could even say 4, but we have the expression range, which is here, which is where most people live. Your bench press is here, your rows are here, maybe your high bench press and your high rows are here. Even most people's lat pull down tends to be in this range. This is the normal range where we can express the expression range of the shoulder, more power than anywhere else. So we're comfortable deeming that where we want to go. The moment we are above where we actually have to utilize the shoulder blade to get that last bit of glenohumeral rhythm, right? So if we were looking at the shoulder, all through this 120 degrees, it is happening through the actual shoulder joint, right? We're getting about 120 degrees of actual shoulder abduction here. Abduction, it's going away from the body. And then once we get up here, the last 60 degrees are really happening from the shoulder blade. So we know if we got pain down here, it's probably within the actual shoulder, the glenohumeral joint. But if we have pain that is happening up here, more than likely, notice I'm not saying absolutes, I have no idea, I didn't do an MRI on this person, right? Then we know that, we potentially have much more of a shoulder blade issue. There's a movement where the scapula is not sliding properly on the rib cage and we're causing some ripple effect of issues. So going back to where we're talking about here, if I can actually get out of just training within this expression range and gain back some of this mobility and stability that I need from the exposure ranges down here, that almost bottom third, and up here in that top third, then I'm going to gain back mobility faster. I also have this range of exposure where I'm almost going to be going into dumping that shoulder forward. So if I'm here and pushing out, now I'm teaching myself as much into this deep level of exposure range as possible that it's okay and safe to be back here. The body will in turn take this position and eventually be okay going here. It's why dips actually can be helpful as long as the client doesn't have pain through them. Another way to do this, which is another move I would definitely have in their training plan, would be to have a very low row. Why? Because if I am here in this position, I am no longer in the expression range. And so I am going to allow myself in this low exposure range to gain back some of the mobility that is happening that is allowing my shoulder blade to slide forward and slide back as it is suspended between rhomboids, serratus, and obliques. It's basically like a train track there, and your scapula, even though it's not sliding all the way down your rib cage, right, but in coming around into your obliques, but it is able to slide through there as it's suspended between those elements of muscle, right? So this is where I would start from these aspects, and then I would progress to something like, imagine if this was a landmine, but I would progress to some form of a landmine. Yes, I'm getting some serratus and pressing on through. So now I am able to be in the expression range that is safest up high. Simultaneously, I'm either going to go with, depending on the client's level, stability ball or a pair of suspension straps like a TRX, and I'm going to go with some fallouts or some rollouts because I'm, again, slowly getting my arms overhead into that nice expression range, or even an ab wheel round the body so that you're actually driving air into the posterior aspect of the rib cage, which is what we need for those shoulder blades to be able to have that room. You're opening up the rib cage on the backside, giving it air that it may not have. And so if we're here, we can't get overhead. But if I start rounded here and then I allow myself to go down, now I'm completely overhead. We're building some abs. Great. 2 for 1, 2 for 1. Your kettlebell dead bugs, 2 for 1. We're getting so many elements out of this position as long as we have stacked rib cage over the pelvis, and we're going to slowly get those arms to be comfortably overhead, out of pain, living in space, and get them to be able to do everything that they need to do.